Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. We will get into some really interesting medicinal and edible plants today. Our medicinal is also a popular edible. I've already discussed it as an edible, and now I'm going to dig way into the medicinals, medicinal use of it. And let's see, at least one, let me double check here, at least one, one of our edibles is one of my favorite medicinals. So you'll learn a lot on this show, I believe. Obviously, it's been a rough week here. We are by no means recovered from Hurricane Helene, and it will be a year at least before parts of like the main parts of the county, the places people visit, like whether it's tourism or like if you have to go to the county seat to go to the courthouse or do your banking or something, it'll probably be a year before Newland, North Carolina looks normal. And out in the rural communities where entire families were swept away and killed by the flood, entire homes went down river, entire neighborhoods disappeared, buried in mud. It will be years. We'll be finding bodies for years. So keep us in your prayers, please. Most of Avery County still does not have any power or cell service or running water. And the federal government is making things so much worse. The National Guards help stop the looting and everything, but FEMA's not allowing private citizens to come in and help anymore. And we got temperatures going down to the 30s next week. People are going to starve to death. People are going to freeze, thanks to the federal government, who is stopping private citizens from coming in and helping the people of Appalachia. And you notice when you turn on the television and listen to one of these like FEMA briefings or somebody in DC, they don't even know how to pronounce Appalachian. It is Appalachian. It's not Appalachian. Okay, Appalachian is actually somewhat of an insult. It's actually an intentional, pronouncing that way began as an intentional insult to the people of Appalachia. It's like, we're the educated Yankees and y'all are, poor dumb hillbillies. It is actually Appalachia. You should know that because you're listening to the Southern Appalachian Herbs show. But I'll move on to the plants. You got to focus. I mean, I keep trying to talk with people. You got some that are still in shock. You got some that are experiencing a lot of anxiety. And so, I've been recommending ashwagandha to people. They are actually allowing us to go to the grocery stores now. So you can buy ashwagandha from 2 of our local grocery stores, which is nice. And the drugstore in the county seat downtown. When I say downtown, okay, there's one stoplight. Okay, I mean it's a town of like I think 4,000 people. So, but anyway, we do have a couple grocery stores and we do have a drugstore. Valerian, of course, if you can take valerian. Some people have an issue with it. Some people have an issue with ashwagandha, and it usually gives them nightmares. But the best thing you can do, say a prayer, hope for the best, and focus. Focus on something pleasant, something to distract you. I mean, do the work you got to do. Clean up your yard, clean up your road, try to recover from the storm. But find something enjoyable, a funny movie. I know this sounds stupid, but it will really keep you sane. I play my mandolin every day for about an hour while I'm listening to the news headlines in the morning and play a little guitar before I go to bed at night. But the main thing, actually, it's kind of funny. I am one of the few around here actually getting a little internet, and I can download videos from YouTube. And it's not something I would normally do, but they put the full run of the Midnight Special TV series on from 1973, I guess, to the end of the show, which is something like 400 episodes. And that's basically been keeping me sane. When I need a break. It's the evening. I can't do any more outside. I need to turn my mind off. I'm putting on these old Midnight Special episodes from 1973, and they're fantastic. I mean, the one I watched last night, check out this lineup. The Bee Gees, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Jerry Lee Lewis, all on the same show. I mean, I'm a huge fan of all three. Blanking out on the other guy that was on there, and that's a shame. He was really good. He was one of the first people to popularize reggae. You may remember his song, I Can See Clearly Now, The Rain Is Gone. He did that one, that's classic, and then he did a Bob Marley song, before anybody knew who Bob Marley was. Night before that, I think it was Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and Earl Scruggs. So, I mean, these lineups are like crazy diverse, and I mean, nobody would put a show together like that anymore. This is, it was still that kind of way when I was a kid. You turn on like Top 40 radio, and it wouldn't be all one genre of music. You'd hear some rock, you'd hear some country, you'd hear some soul music, and I always thought that was great as a kid. I guess that changed really in the 90s. I mean, by 2000, everything was so stratified into categories, strict genres, that people that listen to one genre of music never hear another genre, and that is such a shame. I mean, I grew up listening to, so much Motown and soul music. That was my mom's favorite thing, Motown and soul music, plus Southern rock, a lot of Allman Brothers, Janis Joplin. She was a huge Janis Joplin fan, and plus, country music, jazz, rock. I mean, there was tons of rock on, and I memean, the older kids were really into punk rock. So I grew up with a huge love of punk rock, and after that, it was the what do they call it? New wave music of the '80s. Like the music from the Breakfast Club. That's phenomenal music. There was, a little bit of disco. There was a lot of bluegrass. Sometimes there'd be like some Tejano music on. I mean, beach music. That's huge in North Carolina. Beach music was born in the Carolinas. So, I mean, shagging at the beach. That's what people love to do around here. Not really in the mountains, but that's more of a coastal thing. Anyway, I miss that mix of music, and these midnight special shows are fun. So if you're looking for a distraction, I'm just saying it's really important for your mental health. If you're not resting your mind, you're going to burn out. And if you're getting anxious and every time it rains, you start having a panic attack or something, that's not going to help anybody. So my advice, if you're in one of these affected areas or something like this comes down the road, always remember, put on a funny movie. Grab a Marx Brothers movie. Listen to some music. Find some, if it's just for 15 minutes, distract your mind and give yourself a mental rest. And there are herbs, like I said, ashwagandha, valerian, skullcap, passion flower, so many herbs that can help kind of relax you and deal with the situation, because we're really kind of sitting here thinking nobody's coming to help us. If we don't do it on our own, we're all going to die, because like I said, it's going into the 30s this week, and people don't have heat, people don't have electricity, people don't even have running water. And at least the main roads are open now, so we can get to the grocery store. But if you're down a back mountain road, you're probably getting close to starving at this point, and nobody's helping us. I mean, woohoo! Biden says we can have $750 direct deposit into your bank account. Oh, that's great, isn't it? What if your bank's closed, the ATMs are off, you can't withdraw the money, and your phone doesn't work because there's no cell coverage? How does that help somebody down a mountain road? Now, it's going to help. It's going to help a lot of people, and eventually, it's going to put some groceries on the table, but that's not immediate help. Immediate help was all these private citizens flying in and doing airdrops of groceries and bottled water. And for some reason, FEMA and the National Guard are not allowing private citizens to do that in many areas. Now, in some areas, they probably are. Our horrible jackass Senator Thom Tillis, who was nothing but a pure sellout from day one. I actually called his office one time as a constituent, saying, could you please ask the senator to vote this way on a certain legislation? And the person who answered the phone cussed me out. I was polite. You know me, I'm polite, right? Started cussing me out. This is our U.S. senator. Well, he's over there in Asheville just praising FEMA. Oh, they're doing a great job. Yeah, they're not. And I hope, I don't care. He's a Republican. He's worse than any Democrat we've ever had in that office. He's worse than, I don't care if he's a flag-waving Marxist. I'd take a flag-waving Marxist who was honest and actually cared about his constituents over Thom Tillis any day. He's been a sellout from day one. He was essentially installed by the Chamber of Commerce and the National Republican Party, and he does not care at all about the people of North Carolina. And I'm telling you, he is the sorriest piece of crap sitting in Washington, D.C. And yeah, I'm serious. I called just, could you please ask the senator to vote this way? And the person started cussing me out. I said, wait a minute. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a voter. He works for me. And they said, no, it doesn't work that way. He doesn't work for you. And I'm like, no, I'm a resident of North Carolina. He's my senator. I don't care. And I don't work for you either. And starts chewing me out. That's the person sticking up for FEMA. So, yeah. Anyway, now let's get on to the herbs. Let me tell you, when Jesse Helms was in that seat, I could call up Senator Helms and he would do anything. Anything. He was a friend of my grandfather's. He knew my family name. Boom, taken care of. When there were, what was her name? Kay Hagan. She was responsive. She was a Democrat. Blue. So many people have filled the 2 Senate seats here in North Carolina. I can't remember. They say they took somebody's seat. It's interchangeable. No. Thom Tillis does not represent the people of North Carolina. He represents the Chamber of Commerce and interests in Washington, D.C. Military-industrial complex, big money. Yeah. I mean, his whole goal of being in that office is to flood the country with illegal immigrants to work basically slave labor jobs for big corporations. He's a total 100% sellout. And I mean, I'd rather have a dog in that office than Thom Tillis. I have much more respect for dogs, as you know. All right, now let's get into herbs. Didn't expect to go on that little tirade, but hey, this is what's going on right now. And I would wish something really bad would happen to him, but that's not my nature. I just hope he will retire or be primaried out and replaced at the soonest possible time. The soonest possible time. I would literally rather have, I don't even care what the ideology, I'd rather have anything in that office that cared about the people of North Carolina than Thom Tillis. He is a piece of crap. Now, let's talk about Japanese maple. Now, this one surprised me. Hey, that was a good segue, right? Yeah. Anyway, Japanese maple. These are usually ornamental trees. They're not really, native to America. They're from Japan, and they're really beautiful. They're those usually small ornamental maples with bright red, purple leaves. This one surprised me. A friend up in Canada told me about it, and I tried it. And it's really good. Now, this is when you're going to look for in early spring. You want when the leaves just come out and unfold. And they're really good. It's a real treat in the early spring because these leaves have a sort of a lemony sourness to them. Real popular in Asian cooking, especially Japanese. I've found a lot of recipes using maple. These are Japanese maple leaves in early spring. In soups, in spring rolls. They're actually really good in spring rolls. They're very pretty. They're used ornamentally a lot in Japanese cooking. They're burgundy, they're red, flavor slightly lemony. It's a lot like sorrel, and just excellent as a garnish. And they're really, really very good in salad. And what I would do if I was making a salad would be like half maple leaves and half lettuce or spinach. I wouldn't want a whole salad of maple leaves. And, or maybe add a couple of bitter greens like dandelion leaves. And similarly, you can use them as a cooked green. You can cook your Japanese maple leaves when they're young and tender, mixing them in with other mild pot herbs. And it's really good. I'm still experimenting with them, using them more as a garnish than a main dish. Lots of people grow them in my area. Presumably they'll survive the floods. I have no idea. But this last spring, I was able to gather quite a bit just in parking lots and parks and, places where they've been planted ornamentally. None grow in my yard though. Now I do have maples in my yard. We have several varieties of maple. We have well, everything from red maple, green maple, mountain maple. I think there's some sugar maples. I have not even tried the leaves on those, but I do gather the maple nuts. Those are actually really good. Of course, you can tap the trees for syrup. You can tap many trees for syrup. Maple nuts are about the size of a lentil, so it takes a whole lot to make a meal. It's not a real efficient means of putting calories in your body. But, when you're out hiking or sitting in a park somewhere and you see those little maple nuts, they look like they're attached to little wings. They kind of helicopter down from the tree. Grab a bunch of them, pop them open, and make a nice snack. And I suppose if you had enough of them, they could actually be a part of your diet. I, you know, Certain oaks have been bred to give really good edible acorns, such as the bur oak. I think is one of the main ones. I think there's some white oaks. Anyway, some oaks make nice big acorns that are low enough in tannin to be, usually roasted and eaten like nuts out of hand. You don't have to soak the tannin out of them. And in England and such, those trees are very valuable. They'll be passed down through generations. Somebody will have what they call a noble oak. We've never really done that in America, and you really should. I've been so surprised. I remember I was out at one of my family cemeteries down in the eastern part of the state. Graves, they're 100, 200 years old, and there were live oaks. And live oaks are a southern coastal, usually, oak tree. There's one on the cover of my book, The Medicinal Trees of the American South. That's the angel oak down in Charleston, South Carolina. Very historic tree. The South seceded under that oak. That's how long that oak's been around, right? So I'm out there tending to the graves. I'm cleaning up the cemetery. I'm getting really hungry, and good. It was quite a ways to get from there to anywhere where I can get food. And there were little live oak acorns that were being dropped on the ground. And I thought, live oaks are known to be so tannic and bitter. I'm sure I can't eat these. I picked one up using my teeth, which you probably shouldn't do, but I always do. Kind of broke open the shell with my teeth. And to my surprise, the nuts were as mild and sweet as anything. Almost it tastes like a hazelnut or a Brazil nut. They were just really nice. And so I gathered up a handful, 2 handfuls, and I just sat down for a while and I ate, probably 1/4 of a pound of acorns off of that tree, sitting there by my great grandfather's grave, and just had a really nice time on a warm fall afternoon. And normally I would not have even tried that oak. So what I'm saying with the oaks is do try the acorns of every oak you find. If you find them to be too tannic, don't eat them, of course. Just spit them out. But remember, you can always take those and leach the tannins away from them by putting them in a pillowcase or a mesh bag. People used to put in the creek and just let the water run through it until it had taken some of the tannins out. That's actually why squirrels bury acorns, is to soak some of the tannins out. This is a little odd, and you might think it's strange, but, on the back of your toilet, you have a tank that holds water. That water is actually clean, even though it is a toilet, right? That water is cleanish. We'll just go with that. You can actually drink that water, and if you needed to survive, but it may have some mold or mildew in it. That's obviously an concern, but for the purpose of soaking acorns, that's one of the best places to do it. You can take a couple pounds of acorn with the hulls off of them, take the shells off of them, put them in a cloth or mesh bag, and put them in your toilet tank. And the water in the toilet tank will start leaching those tannins out, and every time you flush the commode, it will fill with fresh water. That's actually one of the most efficient ways of doing it. After that point, you can roast them and eat them. You can put them in soups. You can dry them, parch them in the oven, and grind them into flour and use them in breads. Likewise, I think we should look at the maples as a potential source of nuts. There was, I guess it was about 2 years ago, someone was asking me to identify a maple tree in their yard. I was amazed by the size of these maple nuts. Instead of being the size of a lentil or even like a half a lentil, usually about the size of a lentil, these were more like the size of peas. And I encouraged that person. I said, this is a really special tree. Try to grow some of these and select a variety that will have large, flavorful maple nuts, and you may actually have a very valuable tree here. You could sell these to people. Permaculture folks will get nuts over these. I mean, a little pun intended, I guess, but the same is true with hickories. The hickory is a relative of pecans and walnuts. Anytime you find a good nut-bearing tree, save some of those seeds, stratify them. Usually that means putting them in the freezer for a while and taking them out, and grow some trees and see what you can come up with. You may be able to breed a noble maple, like they have noble oaks in England and Ireland and such. There was some real tradition over there. But anyway, when it comes to these Japanese maple leaves, I just grab a handful when they're available and throw them into a dish. Makes a beautiful and very tasty with that lemony flavor as a garnish for trout. And in this case, I would just simply cook the trout with butter, salt, and pepper, and put some maple leaves on there. Really nice, right? Leaves are a little tannic. They can be added to pickles to help preserve the crispness of vegetables. Just like you can put an oak leaf in fermented pickles to keep your cucumbers crunchy, you can absolutely put maple leaves in there. And unlike the oak leaf, the maple leaves are actually become a nice pickle themselves. They're actually really tasty, and you can use those pickled maple leaves in all kinds of dishes. The color's very pretty, and I mean really bright in a jar of vinegar pickles that you put up on a shelf. It's gonna people are just gonna walk in and go, wow, what is that? It's really pretty. One thing I haven't tried yet, but I think it'd be good, would be to make small domates or like stuffed grape leaves using the Japanese maple leaves. I mean, they'd have to be really tiny, right? These would usually pop one in your mouth as like a little hors d'oeuvre or something. But I think it'd be really good just using the Japanese maple leaf in the place of grape leaves. And because you usually use lemon juice when you're cooking your stuffed grape leaves or domates, I think the Japanese maple leaf would be perfect because it does have some oxalic acid in it. It has that lemony flavor. So anyway, I'm still experimenting with that one. I only learned about it a couple years ago, and it's really become one of my favorite early spring. Now, late spring into summer we'll get into jewelweed or touch-me-not. Now, this is the one I said is an edible that is also medicinal. Most people look at it mostly as a medicinal, and it grows abundantly where I live. And before the hurricane hit, it was all over my yard. Now it's all gone. It's very tender. The stem has a lot of liquid in it. It's kind of watery. People consider it a weed, but it's a great plant. It'll grow to about 3 feet tall, and it requires a lot of water to thrive. And since we get tons of rain here, obviously, I have a ton of touch-me-nots, and I get both the orange and yellow variety. They're called touch-me-nots because the seed pod, if you just barely touch it, it blows up. It just explodes and sends seeds everywhere. And so it reseeds itself. You never have to grow this one, although you could. You could certainly collect those seeds and grow it in your garden, and maybe you want to because the young shoots in the spring are very much like asparagus, and they're really one of our best wild edibles. But the mature plant is the best remedy I know of for poison ivy. You take that plant, you crush the stem, and it's like an aloe type substance, and you rub it on your skin. It'll soothe the poison ivy rash. But if you put it on your skin before being exposed to poison ivy or poison oak, it will prevent the oils from getting into your skin. Just remember to wash up after you've been working in your yard or hiking, and those oils will wash off instead of being absorbed by the skin, so you can avoid getting poison ivy or poison oak or poison sumac if you use touch-me-not. Also, good for sunburns. Very good for it's just like aloe vera. It's much better than aloe for poison ivy. It's amazing actually. And I prefer the name touch-me-not. It just seems more appropriate because those seeds pop open. But I think most people actually do call it jewelweed. I mean, at least in the books. So it's up to you. Doesn't matter to me what you want to call it. Yeah, I'd let it grow just to have it as a remedy for poison oak and poison ivy because I'm so allergic to it, and I think it's well, it really is better than anything you can get from a pharmacy, except, I guess, prednisone. But, it prevents it, so why not, right? Like I said, the shoots are best harvested in the spring before they get more than about 6 inches tall. They can be cooked just like asparagus, the steam saute method, as I've said so many times, and they're really good. And later in the year, the seeds of the plant are actually worth collecting because they're kind of sweet and nutty, and you can include them in breads and cookies, and they're no bigger than chia seeds. They're probably, about the same size, maybe even a little smaller. But anywhere you might throw in some chia seeds or something, you can absolutely put those in. Jewelweed or Touch Me Not pairs extremely well with milk or cream, eggs, and mayonnaise. Really anything creamy. And, I've already given you several recipes over the last few shows for soups and casseroles, for frittatas and omelets. Yeah, how about something a little more exotic here? Okay, this is, I'm normally going to throw this into a soup or a casserole or cook it up like asparagus. But, I love Thai curry. And several vegetables, including this one, work really well in curries. Like the Indian cucumber, we talked about last week. I love all curries. I mean, I'm a curry fanatic. I like Indian, Chinese, Thai, English versions of Indian curries. I mean, they're fantastic. It's actually one of my favorite foods. I kind of think of curry as like the Asian version of chili. I'm a chili fanatic, So to make this is going to be really simple, and I'm not going to claim it's like an authentic Thai curry, but this is something I just throw together like on a Saturday evening and really enjoy with, like, maybe put on an episode of the Midnight Special or something. Or I used to love to watch Hee Haw and the Grand Ole Opry on a Saturday evening. That was nice. Of course, Nashville doesn't play country music anymore, so we don't have that anymore. And the Opry now doesn't have anyone on there really that plays country music. I don't know why people would want to buy the country music industry and turn it into pop. It's about as country as Thom Tillis is a conservative Republican. So anyway, to make a curry, I just simply fry up the vegetables of your choice, right? Brown up some fish or meat of your choice. Add the curry seasoning of your choice. Well, what do I mean by that? Go to any grocery store, go to the Asian section, they're going to have curry powders, and they'll probably have one for, Indian, they'll have one for Thai, whatever, try different ones. They're pre-mixed. It's sort of like buying chili powder, right? You can absolutely make your own. I don't have that recipe in front of me right now, but you can find them online, just like you can make your own chili powder and make it tailored to your choice. But I often, well, almost always, just buy Thai or Indian or whatever chili powder off the shelf, and I think there's even a Korean one, if I'm not mistaken. I may be, but anyway, that comes to mind. But I always add a little extra turmeric. Turmeric's medicinal, and, it's a good way to use turmeric because your body's going to process it well. It's got black pepper in there, some fat, It's a good way to use extra turmeric. And I'll use some chicken stock and just simmer everything together into a curry sauce. That's just the curry powder with some chicken broth, or I could use beef broth or whatever, even water if you have to. Shrimp shells, a stock from shrimp shells is fantastic. You just boil those shrimp shells for about an hour, strain them out, and you can make a fantastic shrimp or fish curry using that. And Thai curries usually contain coconut milk. And I'm not a huge fan of coconut milk, but I do like it in Thai curry. That allows me to make it really, really hot. I can use like super hot peppers. I mean, there's those little Thai peppers, or I can put in habaneros or Carolina Reapers even. The coconut milk kind of balances out. It makes it so, it makes it more tolerable, so you can make things hotter, which I really like. Citrus, usually in more traditional Thai curries, they will use lime leaf. I have trouble finding that around here. I usually just use a little lime or lemon juice and the citrus zest. So that works well for me. If you can find the lime leaf, go for it. And add some citrus as well. And the coconut milk with the creaminess actually works perfectly with the jewelweed shoots. So you can make like a really exotic curry and impress your friends using the weeds in your yard if it grows where you live. Another good way is to combine jewelweeds. This is going to be far less exotic. This is one that everybody's going to like, from kids to old folks, that whatever, people that don't like spicy food. And of course, I really do like spicy food, but this is true comfort food, and it's really good. Okay, you're gonna have to give this one a try. I mean, if this would be like, if there are 5 recipes out of the book that I say you really do need to give a try, this is probably going to fall in there because everybody's going to love it. And again, you could use anything asparagus-like, any of the plants we talked about that are sort of asparagus-like or true asparagus in place of jewelweed shoots. And this is jewelweed shoots with chipped beef in a cream sauce. And I grew up on chipped beef. My grandfather had built ships in the shipyard in World War II. He loved this dish in the Navy. I can't remember what he was. I cannot remember what his official title was. He wasn't actually in the Navy. It was like a Corps of Engineers type of thing. He was actually a ship builder, and but they ate in the mess halls. And anybody who's been in the Navy or probably any branch of the military may know this dish as SOS or blank on a shingle. Okay, there is actually a little. There is a difference between SOS or chip beef. Chip beef is dried salted beef that's cooked in a cream sauce and often served on toast, okay? SOS or blank on a shingle is usually ground beef. It looks different, it tastes different, but a lot of people call them the same thing. And it was a super popular dish in World War II and became a staple of home cooking. It was really my great uncles who served in Korea, who were not into spicy food and couldn't stand kimchi, basically lived on this while they were serving in Korea. But the military's version was, of course, more focused on storage and portability than flavor, and that's why it came to be known as SOS or blank on a shingle, the shingle being a piece of toast. And anyway, even sometimes just onion gravy served on toast was called SOS. But anyway, and it's a shame that people don't really think about chipped beef anymore. You can still buy it from the grocery store. It's even better to make your own. Take maybe an eye around and salt it down. I like to add a little black pepper too. Put it in the refrigerator in a plastic container. It's going to start soaking out the water. Drain it off. Add more salt. Soak it out. And then slice it and dehydrate it. And that's chipped beef. It's super easy and actually really, really tasty. I mean, you can think of it as sort of like drier, harder, unseasoned, I guess, unspiced beef jerky. So it actually is pretty good, or like a beef ham almost. But anyway, let's talk about this. And like I said, asparagus, jewelweed shoots, milkweed shoots. Milkweed shoots are fantastic in here. Solomon seal shoots, anything kind of in that category. Make a roux. We described that several times. Just add equal parts, say 2 tablespoons each of milk and flour. Cook them until they're cooked, until they're slightly brown. They don't smell raw. They smell a little nutty. It actually looks like a thin simmering sauce. That's when you know you've got the right proportion of butter to flour and you've got it at the right consistency. Someone recently got in touch with me and said, whenever I make gravy from a roux, instead of doing instant, I end up with lumps. And I said, well, you didn't cook it long enough. It should actually look thin and look like simmering water, really, when it's done. And then you add in the milk, add in the chipped beef and onions if you like, and sauteed asparagus or jewelweed shoots or whatever you like, and mix it together and serve it on toast or blanched vegetables. And if you want to get fancy, top it with a poached egg. That's always nice. Or some grated cheese. Of course, any green herbs you like. A little parsley makes any dish look nice. If you don't like chipped beef from a store, totally easy to make your own. I guess I left out the curing salt, what they call pink salt. I guess just for safety's sake, I should say add a little pink salt. It's sodium nitrate. It will help prevent bacterial infection. I don't really use it, but I think the federal government would probably get angry at me if I didn't tell you to use it. It's any cured meat you buy from the store has some nitrate or nitrite in it for that very reason. But like I said, I don't really use it. I usually use salt and pepper mostly. But anyway, you could add any spices to it. If you're not big on that plain chip beef flavor, you could absolutely add some mustard seed, coriander seed. You could make corned beef. You could make pastrami. Take that out and smoke it after it's cured in the fridge, and you've got pastrami, which is, gosh, like my favorite luncheon meat. Anyway, but try chip beef at least. Go get some Armour chip beef from the store if you haven't had it since you were a kid. It's very salty. You can actually reduce the salt by soaking it in water first, like a couple of changes of water, drain off the salt. You may find that you actually really like cream chip beef. I do. And the other thing I always add to mine is mushrooms. So I've got mushrooms and onions. I have sometimes some, touch-me-not shoots or some asparagus. Not always, but always mushrooms for me. And saute them. I make my roux in the same pot where I've sauteed my vegetables. I just push the vegetables to the side. Put in the milk, stir it up, add the chip beef, serve it over some toast, and or mashed potatoes. Fantastic with mashed potatoes. Really good with steamed cauliflower. Really good with broccoli and cauliflower, especially if you add some grated cheese over the top. And I think it's fantastic. And if you want to try making your own, get just small, like 1 pound pot roast, whatever you can get, cheap cuts, because it's going to take a little experimentation till you get it right. But it's not that hard. You're going to just basically coat it in salt, or salt and pepper, or salt, pepper, and nitrite, or whatever you want to put on there. Put in the fridge. Like I said, it's going to draw water out of the roast. Pour it off. Do it again. You may have to do it twice. I mean, you will have to do it twice. You may have to do it 3 times if you have a larger roast. The meat's only going to absorb so much salt. It's only going to pull out so much water. It actually forms like that homeostasis type point. And that's the way people used to cure beef. Corned beef is so called because of the grains of salt. They were called corns. Doesn't mean it came from Cornwall. It doesn't mean it has anything to do with corn as we know it today. No, the grains of salt were called corns of salt. And it was literally just salt cured beef. And that's what sailors would take on ships with them. Throw some spices in there and smoke it, and you've got pastrami. And I mean, really fantastic. And it's basically just pickling spices. You can even get a commercial mix of pickling spices. But you could absolutely use just canned, I think it's the Armour brand corned beef from the grocery store. Probably your dollar store has it. I mean, it was once the thing that kept our soldiers alive and fighting. I mean, and I guess maybe they got tired of it, but it was always a staple at my grandmother's house. I mean, it's one of those things my grandfather really liked, and I grew up really liking it. Throw in some good wild veggies, and hey, you got a gourmet meal, and everybody's going to like it. Honestly, people say, oh, it's so salty. I remember it from my childhood. I'll serve it to them. They're like, wow, this is fantastic. I forgot how good this was. Well, I can kind of control the salt in it when I make it myself. If everything just comes out of a can, and, they used to have corned beef in the milk gravy in a can, and that was what was really super salty. Haven't seen that in a while. But yeah, you make it for yourself from scratch. Add whatever herbs you like. Can't go wrong with cheese. And people are going to love it. Honestly, I mean, it's just like one of the super easiest things I make that people just like flip out over. I mean, they really do. Young and old, everybody likes that one. So keep that one in mind. Now let's get on to our medicinal. And it's one we've discussed before as a wild edible. But really before I do, I want to tell you, for the past few months I've been telling you about a product called Magic Mind. And Magic Mind is a great herbal mix of medicinal herbs and medicinal mushrooms with a little matcha green tea for caffeine. I was saying a few minutes ago about how it's important to kind of rest your mind a little bit, kind of keep your sanity when you're in a stressful situation. It's really essential, not only to look for those outlets of, some comedy, some music, time with a friend, just to allow you to cope with things. But herbs can really help, and I mentioned ashwagandha. Another thing, that really helps is some caffeine. If you've ever been in a hurricane, you've ever been in an ice storm, you've ever been in a natural disaster, or you've just been without power for a few days or whatever, you know how much that hot cup of coffee, is like, I mean, that is like the thing that gets you. It's comforting. It's familiar. It's like that kind of security blanket you need. Um, Interestingly, when with this storm coming through and all the issues we've dealt with, my little shot of Magic Mind in the morning has really helped. You know, it's got a little caffeine, but it's also got ashwagandha, and ashwagandha is an adaptogen. That means it helps your body deal with stress. It lowers heart rate and blood pressure, it relaxes your muscles a little bit. You put that ashwagandha together with the caffeine from the green tea, and there are other herbs in there. They're immunosupportive herbs. There are mushrooms that help with immunity and mental clarity. It's got some B vitamins. It's got some zinc, and I mean, you know, this is something that I would use in any circumstance. And it's tasty. I can actually look forward to it in the morning. And like I've said before, it's kind of almost like a sort of like grapefruit juice, but a little sweeter. It's a little, just kind of wakes up your mouth, and you're ready to eat breakfast. You know. So during these really actual difficult times, I've been surprised actually that when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get my Magic Mind. And it doesn't need refrigeration, so I don't have to worry about if the power's out or not. I just grab that, slug down either a full or a half little bottle of it. It's only like a little 2 ounce bottle. It's not very much. And it's like, this has become my wake up comfort thing that really does actually seem to help. And then, I make a pot of coffee because I am a coffee drinker. I don't see, to me, there's no substitute for coffee. I don't substitute tea for coffee. I don't substitute herbs for coffee. I love my coffee. So it's just become the little, wake me up perk that gets me ready to start my day. And with what we've been going through, yeah, you really do need something like that. And having this in addition to an old-fashioned coffee percolator, which I would recommend everyone have an old-fashioned coffee pot or a French press, because you never know when the power is going to go off. You never know when you're going to be in dire straits. And of course, a way to heat water. But the nice thing with Magic Mind is I don't need to heat it. I don't need to refrigerate it. Yeah, this actually gives me just a little, get me going in the morning with just a few calories, but a lot of vitamins and medicinal herbs. And I would really recommend this to anybody. I wish there was like an Elon Musk of Magic Mind that could, bring this into rural communities and get it out to people in need, because I found it quite useful actually, and I'm really, really glad to have it. And I think you will as well. Give it a try. They're giving me this little promotional code that I can share with my readers. The website, of course, is magicmind.com. My promotional code is JudsonCarroll20, JUDSONCARROLL 20. You can either type that in as a full URL, magicmind.com/JudsonCarroll20, or you can go to the site and enter JudsonCarroll20, and you're going to get a really good discount. It's a very high quality product. It is not a cheap product, but it's not an overpriced product. With the promotional code, it's really worth giving a shot. I think y'all are going to enjoy this. So remember, magicmind.com, JudsonCarroll20, and I hope I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'm sure you'll enjoy the flavor, if nothing else, but I hope it does as much for you as it does for me. And now let's talk about chickweed. And it's super abundant, grows everywhere. You should probably be growing this one in your garden because you can pretty much grow it all year. It will be one of the few edible greens you can even eat in the dead of winter. It's Stellaria medea, also known as chickweed, common chickweed, considered a weed in America, brought here by our ancestors as food and medicine, and of course to feed their chickens. It's called chickweed because birds love it. It's also called birdweed. It's also called winterweed because it's one of the few things that'll stay green and grow through the winter in most places. At the very least, you could grow it in a cold frame or an unheated greenhouse in the middle of winter, and you're going to have greens to eat. And I love it. Honestly, it's mild. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. but it's really nutritious for you. And now we'll get into the medicinal use of this herb. It's been documented at least since ancient Greece, probably going back to, well, no, it does. It goes back to Egypt. This is one of the ancient Egyptian medicinal herbs and, well, and edibles, but this is one as old as human history. This one as old as documented human history from like Egypt and ancient Babylon and Samaria and such as that. This is one of the first plants our ancestors documented use of, and now it's considered a weed, which is just so stupid. You know how I feel about that. Dioscorides said that, well, let's see, he describes it, and he says the root of this, pounded into small pieces, is applied to heal wounds. A decoction of it taken as a drink is good for griping and painful urination. And for ulcers around the bladder, it breaks urinary stones. Yes, a really good one for kidney and bladder stones. It's also called, well, he gives all the names of it, and he says what it's called in Egypt, in Rome, in Africa, in Sparta, in Spain. I mean, it really widespread. And this is like, 3,000 years ago. It was used by every culture in the known world at that point. It's probably used by every culture, period. By 1500s England, Gerard muddies the water, as he so often did. Parkinson was the greatest herbalist of England, but he was Catholic. Gerard became the most popular herbalist of England, whose works are still preserved. It's very hard to find Parkinson's work because he was Catholic, and Protestant England wasn't real happy with their best herbalist being a Catholic. Gerard was Protestant. He was lower middle class that rose to prominence after they confiscated all the land from the Catholics and all their wealth. And he became the king's, well, actually the queen's gardener. And he was not all that well educated, but he really knew his plants. He was good at growing stuff. He often gave them the wrong names. His Latin was not good. He was not educated as Parkinson had been in the classical tradition. But he was a contemporary of Shakespeare. And very interestingly, William Shakespeare probably wrote many of his books, like Midsummer Night's Dream, a lot of those that are set in the woods and forests, on Parkinson's huge garden in which every plant and tree known to the British Empire was growing, and it was all owned by the Queen. He was her personal gardener, and what a cool job that would be. I mean, I'm no fan of the current British monarchy, but wouldn't you love being the Queen's gardener and being paid and given all the honors and luxuries to grow things, just to grow plants and write about them? I mean, that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun, actually. But anyway, because he wasn't good at naming things, in fact, a lot of his classic herbal work, I think Gerard's Herbal, I guess is the name of it, was plagiarized from a Dutch herbalist. And he got a lot of the identifications wrong, whereas the Dutch herbalist didn't. So, interestingly, he calls 13 plants chickweed. So, we're going to talk about Stellaria medea. I've got another chapter in the book where I talk about another herb called chickweed, but he actually called 13 different plants chickweed, and apparently medicinally they were pretty much interchangeable. He said even though we don't know what all of them are, right? I mean, because he wasn't that good at identity. At what was the word? Taxonomy or something like that. Anyway, he said the leaves of chickweed boiled in water very soft, adding thereto some hog's grease, the powder of fenugreek and linseed, and a few roots of marshmallow stamped into the form of a cataplasm or poultice, taketh away the swellings of the legs or any other part, bringeth suppuration or let's see, bringeth to suppuration or matter hot aposthumes. Okay, so this basically means boils. I mean, sores. It means kind of like brings them to a head so they can be taken care of. Dissolveth swellings that will not willingly yield to suppuration. Easeth members that are shrunk up. So good for, what would you call it? I mean, I think you could be talking anything from like cramping there to like torpidity to atrophy. Atrophy. He said it would easeth the members that are shrunk up. Comforteth wounds in the sinewy parts, and defendeth foul, malign, and virulent ulcers from inflammations during the cure. In a word, it comforteth, digesteth, defendeth, and suppurateth very notably. So, good old Elizabethan English right there. If you studied your Shakespeare in high school, you should have no problem understanding that. Unfortunately, I really loved Shakespeare, even in high school. I don't like acting or plays in any way, shape, or form, but I love to, and I didn't like his sonnets, but I love to read his plays. I thought he was a great writer, and I think really one of the ones that gave me a love of writing, of the written word. But anyway, he says the leaves boiled in vinegar and salt are good against manginess of the hands and legs if they be bathed therewith. Now, is he talking mange like your dog might get? Probably not. He's probably talking eczema or psoriasis. A lot of herbalists use topical applications of chickweed to this day for that. He said little birds in cages are refreshed with the chickweed when they loathe their meat, whereupon it was called by some passerina. I don't know what that means. And little birds don't normally eat meat, so he just means food in this case. If they don't want to eat their bird seed, they love their chickweed, and it gives them some vitamin C. They need that as much as anyone else does. Little parakeets and such. I used to have a few little parakeets. They didn't get all the nutrition they needed in their diet. They started pulling their feathers out, and I had to, call the vet and ask, what am I doing wrong? And he said, well, you got to give them this supplement. If I had known about chickweed, and I think he even said you can go out and gather some clover and give it to them. They just need some greenage, roughage, greenery, whatever. I don't know. Now we'll get to more modern use. Get out of the Elizabethan era. Miss Grieve clears up all that confusion. She says several plants have been named chickweed. One of them belonging to the purslane family, and purslane, birds also love that, and it's a great wild edible that I've talked about a lot. For our species of Cerastium, the mouse-ear chickweed, I've got a whole chapter on mouse-ear chickweed, grows pretty commonly in North Carolina. As Stellaria medea, which is one we're talking about, is a ubiquitous garden weed of which caged birds are as fond as they are of groundsel, and a taste shared by young chickens to whose diet it makes a wholesome addition. You should really be, if you keep chickens or guineas or anything, ducks, geese, definitely grow quail, anything. Grow some chickweed. I don't know. I've never seen quail eat chickweed. They seem like bugs more and seeds. But, they might. Pigeons are real big on seeds especially. But I think any bird's probably going to want to eat some chickweed. She says chickweed is a most variable plant. And Gerard enumerates no less than 13 species. Obviously, we just talked about that. She gives a description of it. I say just look it up online. We can do that now. We don't have to go through a 100, 200 word description of the plant. She says the young leaves, when boiled, can hardly be distinguished from spring spinach and are equally wholesome. They may be also used uncooked with dandelion leaves to form a salad. Absolutely, I agree. You grab some chickweed, you grab some dandelion, you grab some spinach, whatever. Have it raw or boiled, just lightly boiled, steamed, more like with some sliced egg and some blue cheese, and I'm happy. Especially if I got a few sardines to eat with that salad. I'm going to go for that every single. I could literally eat that daily and be really happy with it. She talks about how pigs, rabbits, cows, and horses all love it, but sheep are indifferent to it, and oddly enough, goats refuse to touch it. That actually led to a lot of legends and superstitions about chickweed, because you may remember the Bible. It says God will separate the sheep from the goats, and people began to think. I love goats, by the way. I grew up raising goats. They're one of my favorite animals. Some people think they're evil and demonic. I don't get that. Yeah, they can be a little annoying, to say the least. They will climb anything, jump over anything, and they love to butt you. The young billy goats just love to beat the crap out of you. But I love goats. I'm a huge goat fan. But some people had some superstitions to do with chickweed because the goats wouldn't eat it. They thought it may be sort of like a magical holy plant or something. But notice the sheep didn't really care about it either. It was more the rabbits, cows, and horses and pigs that liked it. So I don't believe in any of those superstitions. I do think goats are just wonderful, though. Anyway, parts used medicinally. The whole herb, if you've never been around goats, okay, let me just, I'm going off on tangents today. Bear with me. It's been a stressful week. Goats are like dogs with hooves. Think about it that way. They are playful. They are mischievous, especially when they're kids. They are protective. The billy goats are incredibly protective when they get older. Um, they are loyal. They are affectionate. They are feisty. They will fight. They will be a constant source of aggravation. You either love goats or you don't. They are not like sheep, which are docile and calm and will pretty much do what you tell them to do. They will follow one another. Yeah, goats will follow one another in a herd, and if they look at you as like their herd leader, they will follow you. But they will also drive you absolutely insane. And I love them. I'm just a big goat fan. That's me. You love them or hate them, but just think of them as dogs with hooves that are also tasty because goat meat is actually really good. In America, you mainly find it in like Mexican and South American butcher shops. They're called carnicerias. So if you don't raise your own goats, do give it a try. It's called cabrito usually, and there's a rolled R in there like cabrito. But the goat milk is fantastic. I really some of my favorite cheeses are made from goat milk. Chev, Boursin, feta. I love feta cheese. I mean, I could live off feta cheese. That's a goat's milk cheese. Really very, very good. But anyway, parts used medicinally of chickweed. The whole herb collected between May and July, when it is the best condition, is dried and used in the same manner as groundsel. Now, we've talked about groundsel before. Remember, there are a lot of herbs called groundsel. Some are quite toxic. We've been through that. I don't need to go through that again. But medicinal actions and uses. Demulcent, which means softening. Refrigerant, which means cooling. It is held in great repute among herbalists and is used mostly in the form of an ointment. Fresh leaves have been employed as a poultice for inflammation and indolent ulcers with most beneficial results. A poultice of chickweed imposed in muslin, not Muslim, obviously, muslin, which is like cheesecloth. We'll just call it cheesecloth, is a sure remedy for a carbuncle or an external abscess. The water in which chickweed is boiled is also used to bathe affected parts. Combined with elecampane, chickweed has been recommended as a specific for hydrophobia, that's rabies, and the juice taken internally for scurvy. I don't know how it would help with rabies. I always say if you get bit by a rabid animal, you need to get to the emergency room right away. But even in the 1930s, it was recommended for it. The plant chopped and boiled in lard makes a fine green cooling ointment, good for piles and sores, and all cutaneous diseases, skin conditions, and has been employed as an application for ophthalmia, so eye inflammations and such. A decoction made with the fresh plant is good, used for constipation, and an infusion of the dried herb is efficacious in coughs and hoarseness. Culpeper calls it a fine, soft, pleasing herb, and goes on to tell us that it is found as effectual as purslane to all the purposes whereunto it serveth, except for meat only. In other words, purslane has more nutrition. Purslane is kind of like okra, Chickweed is more like little tiny leaves of spinach. So. The herb bruised or juice applied with cloths or sponges dipped therein to the region of the liver. And as they dry to have fresh applied, in other words, keep applying this to the liver area, doth wonderfully temper the heat of the liver, and is effectual for all impostumes and swelling whatsoever. Have no idea if that works at all. And the liver, it's sort of a big organ, and a lot of it's under your rib cage, so I'm not sure exactly where he's applying this to. You'd really be sort of like the whole mid-torso region. But anyway, boil a handful of chickweed with dried red rose leaves in a quart of muscadine, or grape juice, I guess. Could be muscadine wine. Maybe muscat. I mean, they didn't really have muscadines in England. I'd have to look into that. We're just going to go with wild grape juice or wine, I guess, until a fourth part be consumed or evaporated, and put on them a pint of the oil of trotters or sheep's feet. So oil from pig or sheep's feet. It's getting stranger as we go. Stirring them well, and anoint the grieved part wherein, warmed against the fire, rubbing it well with your hand. and and bind also some of the herb if you choose to the place, and with God's blessing, it will help thee in 3 times a dressing. Wow, I have absolutely nothing against pig's feet. I actually like trotters, but that's a rather odd cure for what he calls shrunken sinews or cramps otherwise. Anyway, Culpeper was an odd guy. We'll move on from that. Let's get into some, we'll get back to some more modern stuff here. First of all, Brother Aloysius, writing, I guess, around 1920, said that chickweed was good for lupus. It was a diuretic and good for consumptives, people with tuberculosis. Steeped in wine, recommended for convalescents, sick people. Used as a compress for inflammations of the liver. So he used that the same way. Interesting. Piles and inflammations of the genitals. The herb eaten is good for consumption, emaciation, epilepsy, and blood spitting. And there was a type of seizures caused by retained fluid. So that would be the diuretic properties, most likely. Poultice used to soften breasts. Father Kunzel, great Swiss herbalist of the 1920s. I've written a whole book, co-wrote a whole book on him. He said, if you have a canary bird, put plenty of this herb in its cage, and all other birds like it as well. To humans, these weeds, so-called, which overgrow entire patches, are priceless. It is a wonderful tool to strengthen the heart, brings back strength and freshness to people who have been ill for a long time. But do not dry these little herbs, unlike what Miss Grieve recommended, because as vegetables they would lose their strength. He preferred to use them fresh. You can prepare it like spinach with a little flour and meat stock. It's nice. I like almost a cream of spinach, and boil it and drink the juice. It's he says juice is excellent for children, for gout, even for tuberculosis. He said tuberculosis patients have been cured after prolonged use of this divine gift from God. So what people call a weed, he called a divine gift from God. Externally, the crushed herb is applied as a poultice for pneumonia, liver inflammation, throat swelling, inflamed feet, inflamed rectum, etc. All related varieties that botanists find in the Stellaria and Cerastium families can be used in the same way. The alpine variety is even more powerful. He always believed that herbs grown at higher elevations were stronger, and sometimes there is something to that. 1860s, resources of the southern fields and forests. They were looking at Stellaria media, as we are. Apparently it was being grown a lot as pig and chicken feed at the time. And they found it to be a very useful crop and recommended people grow it. He said it has the reputation when boiled in vinegar and salt as possessing a virtue to cleanse eruptions of the hands and limbs, so sores. And interesting, he notes that the flower, in some degree, serves as a natural barometer for when rain is approaching, they remain closed, and when dry weather, they are regularly open from about 9 o'clock in the morning till noon. So that's pretty cool, I think. King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898 said, chickweed appears to be a cooling demulcent, so softening and cooling. I have seen the fresh leaves bruised and applied as a poultice to indolent, intractable ulcers of the leg of many years standing, so very old sores. And it would help close them up and heal them up. Poultice changed 2 to 3 times a day. In acute ophthalmia, the bruised leaves will likewise find a valuable application. An ointment may be made by bruising the recent leaves in fresh lard and used as a cooling application to erysipelas and other forms of ulceration. That's probably a better way of doing it than Culpeper recommended. Just make an ointment of it they were using lard. You could use coconut oil if you wanted to, whatever. I don't expect you to go boiling sheep's feet or something. Although, as I said, pig feet are actually really good when roasted with some vegetables. It's a delicacy in France called trotter, so don't turn your nose up at it. But make sure you clean them real well. A tincture of Stellaria media has been extolled in some quarters as a remedy for rheumatic pains of a fugitive and shifting character. He's saying rheumatic pains of a shifting character. It's probably going to mean more nerve pain than joint pain, I would think. By the way, pickled pig's feet, fantastic. I got a recipe for that in my Omnivore's Guide for Home Cooking. that was one of my grandfather's favorites as well, and they're actually really good. And there's a great old blues song called "A Pig's Foot and a Bottle of Beer." Look it up if you haven't heard it. It was once a major part of Southern culture, both black and white. And still in Germany, pickled pig's feet are beloved. So, just because we don't really see them in American grocery stores doesn't mean they're not good, because they really are quite good. Jethro Kloss, writing, I guess in the 40s, said, medicinal properties, alterative, that means almost like tonic, kind of brings you back to health. Demulcent, refrigerant, mucilaginous, pectoral, means it's good for chest conditions, resolvent, and discutient. And I don't remember what discutient means, so I have to look it up, sorry. He said even in the 40s it was considered a nuisance weed, but could be used like spinach, and was, he thought, quite nutritious, and it is. But he said it could be used fresh, dried, or powdered in poultices, so there's a little disagreement on that one. Excellent in all cases of bronchitis, pleurisy, coughs, colds, hoarseness, rheumatism, inflammation or weakness of the bowels, stomach, lungs, bronchial tubes, in fact, any internal inflammation. It heals and soothes anything it comes in contact with. So, wow, I mean, a veritable panacea there. And, this is Jethro Kloss, interesting guy, but a pretty good herbalist, and, So definitely worth growing, and definitely worth learning to identify in the wild. Let's get into modern use. Plants for the Future says chickweed has a very long history of herbal use, being particularly beneficial in the external treatments of any kind of itching skin condition. It has been known to soothe severe itchiness, even when all other remedies have failed. In excess doses, chickweed can cause diarrhea and vomiting. It should not be used medicinally by pregnant women. That's important to know. The whole plant is astringent, carminative, that means settles your stomach. Demulcent, diuretic, expectorant, laxative, refrigerant, vulnerary, that means wound healing. Taken internally is useful in the treatment of chest complaints. In small quantities, it also aids in digestion, can be applied as a poultice, and will relieve any kind of roseola, or redness of the skin. By the way, they're saying for pregnant women not to take it in medicinal doses. As a food, it's generally considered safe, but look into that if you have a concern. It can be applied as a poultice. Okay, we just did that. Infusion of the fresh herb can be added to bath water, and has an emollient or softening quality, and will help reduce inflammation in rheumatic joints, for example, and encourage tissue repair, almost like comfrey will do. It's a wound healing property. It's very good. Decoction of the plant taken internally as a postpartum depurative, emmenagogue, galactagogue, and circulatory tonic. So it's an emmenagogue means it brings on menses, so it could be a little dangerous in pregnancy. It is also believed to relieve constipation and be beneficial for treatment of kidney complaints. Decoction also used externally to treat rheumatic pains, wounds, and ulcers. The expressed juice of the plant has been used as an eye wash. Edible parts of the leaves. Young leaves, raw or cooked as a pot herb. They can be available all year if the winter is not too severe. Very nutritious, can be added to salads, eaten cooked, very much like spinach. It goes on and on and on. So, only known hazards are leaf does contain saponins. Saponins are those soapy type qualities, and all those toxic, these substances are very poorly absorbed by the body and tend to pass through without causing harm. They are also broken down by cooking. Saponins are found in many plants, including many that are used for food, such as certain beans. It is advisable, however, not to eat large quantities of food that contain saponins, because they can be toxic in large quantities, especially if you're eating them raw. You'd really have to eat a lot raw. But interestingly, they are toxic to some creatures, such as fish. And this is another what you call fish poison. Most of the chickweed that is in America came from Europe, okay? But I'm sure it found use very early on by Native Americans. You were looking really more at like ancient tribes in Europe, in this case, would take the plant, crush it up, large quantities of it, put it in a pond, and it prevents the fish's gills from absorbing oxygen. They float to the surface, you scoop them up, take them home and eat them. That's obviously quite illegal in America these days, but good to know in case of an emergency if that was your only way to survive. I certainly don't have a problem with that, though you still may be ticketed by a game warden if he finds you, if he sees you do it. Other plants, there are many. Yucca root, very often used. Any plants that contain saponin can be used similarly. And let's see. I got just one more caution from Cloverleaf Farm. They say do not use if any kidney disease is present. An excessive dose can have adverse effects on the kidneys. That would be the saponins. Again, that's actually what they're talking about. And in rare cases, could even cause heart failure. So, take that with a grain of salt. It's generally considered to be one of the safest herbs there is, but I think it's kind of like one of those things where you'd either have to be a very weakened condition with severe kidney disease, maybe severe heart disease, and probably consume like huge amounts of it raw or, whatever. And you're probably not going to do that. But topically, it's certainly just fine to use. And as a food, I've never seen a single warning on this as a food. So I'm thinking like concentrated medicinal dosages, okay? And they just go on through a lot of the same history we did. And I think that's going to wrap it up. Let me see if I have anything else here. In China, the root is used as a cooling herb for fevers and to stop nosebleeds and for heavy menstrual bleeding. So, yeah, I guess that's the last I have to add here. And even Cloverleaf Farm says because of its diuretic properties, chickweed is good in certain kidney disorders. But caution should be advised and used only under the guidance of a professional. So I'm going to say, if you have kidney disease, maybe steer clear of this one or any other herb that contains saponins, unless a professional herbalist or naturopath, doctor, or whatever tells you to. But do your own research. I definitely use this one much more as a food than anything else. I think it's one of the most valuable herbs we have. But for all those, arthritis, wound healing, etc., it's one of those essentials, in my opinion. So, y'all, I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you have a great week. I hope you are drier and safer than most of us are up here. And remember to say prayers for us, and I'll talk to you next time.